saying how the South African games industry is still like sort of not very diverse. I mean, we've got a really good group here, and I think Amaze is a very special kind of community, but in terms of the broader sort of game scene, it's still pretty much just the same suspects. So I got together some friends and new friends who are all doing amazing work in kind of trying to make alternative gaming cultures or kind of gaming scenes that are a bit more diverse and inclusive for people who wouldn't normally have been involved in this kind of scene. Yeah, so that's kind of the discussion that we're going to have today. And to start off, yeah, I guess I should kind of tell you guys who I am, because who the fuck am I? So I'm Anya Fenton. I am currently a PhD student at the University of Cape Town. My background is in visual arts, so I draw comics, make bands for art for bands, for commercials, for lots of different purposes. And I think kind of across my work, I'm really into understanding kind of complex creative constellations. So whether that takes shape as an app or a painting or a comic or a paper, really just depends on where I find myself. So for the last 3 years, I've been working on a research project called Hacking Design. And this is kind of where I despair every day. That's my beautiful mind ball where I try and figure out a thesis. And my research has basically, over the last few years, revolved around creative cultures and especially the city of Cape Town. So during the World Design Capital, I was kind of doing a lot of research about who gets to participate in creative spaces, whether that's game design, architecture, graphic design, whatever. And it led me to this little known statistic that only about 1% of kids in South Africa have access to visual arts or information communication technologies until a school leaving level. And I found that to be really, really problematic, because that could be one of the explanations why we don't really have too much diversity in the creative scenes. And so, yeah, for about like 2 years I did an ethnographic study where I hung out with kids from all sorts of kind of different backgrounds, from all sorts of different places. The thing that they had in common, that they usually came from low resource backgrounds and didn't have art at school, and at the age of 18 suddenly like decided or heard about graphic design or game design or whatever and wanted to go study this, and how difficult that transition was into the university space. And so I was kind of looking at the kind of ways that kids were hacking, how like these literacies and these skill sets before going to university. And what I found was that a lot of it was happening on mobile. So kids were just making the most amazing, awesome, creative shit on their phones. And I started thinking around the phones as like as a creative tool, and there's lots of research to back up this as a really good strategy. But you kind of need to know more, and it's one of those things that really need to be infrastructured between multiple disciplines, from computer science to visual arts to media studies and anthropology, etc., etc. So, yeah, I started working on this thing called Molio, the mobile portfolio, which was intended to be a creative app for mobile phones. And we basically just did a lot of collaborative design. So the official term is participatory design, which I don't really like too much for the purposes of this, because I feel like often things like this can be a bit alienating in a South African context. We always have so many issues with hierarchies between people, between spaces, between sort of cultures. And so around about the same time I got involved with these fools who are like kind of doing really cool, interesting stuff with games around Cape Town, and just started hanging out at some of the game jams. Most recently, I was at a game jam in Denmark, and yeah, oh no, this is the wrong one. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. Sad Cat. So I'm sure some of you guys have played Sad Cat. It's up here. And this was one of the first times I went into the space and I felt really, really intimidated. Because there was a bunch of Danish game developers who are incredibly talented, and I'm a total noob, and I can art, but what else can I really do? I don't really know how to be in the kind of assembly line for creating a game. And it was really interesting after this experience. I was really, really passionate about it because I learned so much, and people were so free with their knowledge. And I really started thinking around jamming as a method for designing in other contexts. So with my work, I started having kind of creative jams and trying to figure out how one could make cool stuff on mobile. And I had a group of collaborators who kind of showed me design on mobile and how they usually do it. So we would come up with a brand or a name or something and kind of make like cool t-shirt designs and flyers and stuff on phones. So I mean, this is not directly related to games, but it kind of takes a lot of the same kind of attitude towards sharing knowledge, trying to be more inclusive, trying to create informal spaces that don't necessarily rely on that like teacher-student kind of relationship. And this is something that's often seen, well, it's most like notable in kind of band culture, right, in music, where people learn how to play instruments by being just surrounded by other people who play instruments and jamming together. And so, I mean, I think people on this panel have a lot more to say about the topic than I do because they have a lot more experience in game design. I just thought it would be really interesting to bring this conversation out here. And to me, my kind of personal interest in, I suppose, inclusivity and diversification is that I come from a really privileged background where I've always been completely able to choose what I do. And I think that if you're in that kind of position of power, you need to make sure that you're fighting for other people's choices and other people's ability to decide what they want to do with their lives. Yeah, and with that, I'll introduce my panel members who I've given this question to. I don't know if they're prepared around it at all. But I think you guys will probably have heard most of them speak at some point or another. So I'm going to ask them to just introduce themselves, introduce their work, how their work relates to inclusivity and diversification, and then I think we can kind of open the floor and just take some questions. Cool.
Hi everyone, I'm Hanli. I'm a lecturer at Wits University, where I'm coordinator of the 2 game design degrees that we run. Inclusivity and diversity is sort of my baby bugbear. So anyone who's ever had a class with me will know that I can wax lyrical on this for ages. So I've been asked to just sort of describe my work. I'm not a game designer, I'm an academic, I'm a teacher. I see myself in teaching. And that is where I'm really invested in. I put up with academia and the university because it allows me to teach. And in this respect, there are 2 sort of initiatives, 3, that I really am able to pursue my interest in diversification. The one is on academic level, and this is in not only what I study, what I write and publish, but also the kinds of environments I get involved with internationally. I present regularly on the international circuit, and this year I was invited to co-curate a panel at the that's the Digital Games Research Association, which is a game studies, academic games forum, on diversification. And I've been included in a working group there to look at not only how we study and talk about diversity in games, but also how we look at diversification within games academia. And there we've been looking a lot at access to academic resources, access to academic writing, and also at new ways of knowledge production and the ways that our established modes of knowledge production very much favor a Western point of view. So that's something I'm very actively involved in, and I will be working on, with Deborah over the next year, preparing for the diversity conference for the Digital Games Research Association next year in Edinburgh. So that's one aspect, but that's not as related to what I do here. Firstly, I teach, and who I teach and what I teach is important to me. And that is not only in terms of teaching people to make games and be passionate about the games that they make. It's also about equipping people who come through my degree, or degrees, to enter the South African economic space in various areas and in various capacities. So one of the things I'm very aware of in teaching is that I need to be teaching people to make great games, but I also need to be preparing them to go into other sectors as well. And then the third real area that I'm involved in is sort of my passion project. And this is where I'm particularly interested in the expansion of STEM fields to girls and to underprivileged populations. And this is kind of where they collide for me, where I see games not as an end in themselves, but as a gateway drug. Kids want to make games. If I say to people, hey, you could study how to make games, I'm inundated by kids wanting to make games. And we all know the industry only takes so much, okay? But I'm working on establishing an outreach program that is sustainable and deep enough to be able to reach high school children. And honestly, as a tertiary educator, our secondary education system is in serious trouble. I cannot overstate the catastrophe we are facing in our primary and secondary education. And I know that's something that very many people don't want to hear, but we're in serious trouble. So one of the things that I'm interested in doing is using games as a means to an end. By going into secondary education, into specifically grade 9, grade 8 and 9, where decisions are being made that 14, 15-year-olds are not ready to make. They don't understand the implications in 20 years' time for the decisions they're making in their subject choices that year. Math sucks for a lot of people. It's hard, it's not fun. So they take Maths Lit. If you take Maths Lit, as of next year, you cannot even get into a BA degree. Okay. That's it. We've got to reach these kids and somehow get them inspired. And a really great way of doing that, for me, is to use games. And I'm not even talking about teaching kids to code, although that's also important to me. I'm just talking about taking something that they are already interested in, because everybody, child or adult, loves to play. Everyone would like to make a game. Just take that and show them, even on the most simplistic level, that, hey, there's something here. So we go into, we've been running it with a pilot school and a second school now. We're rolling into a third school next year, where we go in and we say, hey, right, let's make board games. Spend a whole day, we make board games. And while they're making board games, we're walking around and going, right, so, see what you did there. You've made a path game, since snakes and ladders, whatever. You're asking the player to roll 2d6. Where is it best to place your trap so that most of your players will fall into that trap? It's second nature, right? Surely you should know this. You don't know this. use that moment to say, all right, let's write it out. Here we go. Now, what if you were rolling 3d6? What would that be? I believe that we can use the drive to want to play, to want to make games, to make things like this just a little bit more accessible. We're working now on going from our analog pilot project. We've run a pilot this year in a school with a digital workshop, and next year we're hoping to roll it out to 2 more schools, where we go from, okay, great, we've all made board games together, let's make a game. Let's see, all right, you want the bullet to go where? How do we work that out? Where do we put that? Even if we pre-build it for them and just allow people to play with it, that already for me can plant a seed. Yeah, that's me.
Hey, my name is Regina, and I'm a finalist at GCT studying electrical and computer engineering. And yeah, my talk or my session will kind of be redundant to people who were at my Thursday session, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm running a startup called Educate. So what we do is we build educational arcade machines. And we focus on primary school learning. So we look at what a grade R is supposed to know at the end of primary school learning. So when they finish grade 7, what must they cover? And then we try to gamify it. And we try to gamify it in not in a fun way, that is not intimidating and straightforward educational, because we know how boring educational games can get. So it's sort of divided in parts, where the first part is educational, and depending on how many points you get from that, then you can play a fun game. So it's sort of a reward that you play this and get it right, and you get points, and your points are converted to full, and you can play the racing game. So, and then we take these kind of arcade machines, we have what we call gaming station outreaches, where we go to the villages and we go to townships where people don't have access to internet and they don't have access to libraries, and we try to give them quality education through games. So we also look at the private schools, because they're also running on a different sort of educational system. As Henry has said, like, the government curriculum as it is very problematic, and it has, we're in trouble, like you said. So we try to look at the schools that are getting it right, the schools that are getting the primary school curriculum right. And also we look abroad, we look at countries like Singapore. Why is it said that they have the most brilliant educational curriculum in the world? So we look at what they cover in their primary school learning, and we try to gamify it. And we take these machines to people who don't have access to complementary learning. And I'm also looking into sort of complementing the curriculum as it is. So I'm very interested in working on games that are addressing sexual health, that will be addressing entrepreneurship skills, that you don't have that in primary school learning. And I also try to make games that are more focused on topics. I have a very serious problem with how the system works. So they sort of like set it up that you're gonna see multiply when you're in grade 3, and you're gonna start using board maths when you're in grade 6. And I'm like, what if I'm in grade 1 and I'm ready to do board maths? So I make games that can now, if a kid is very interested in that, can take like the whole trip in games. And also be more focused on topics when they say that you're learning natural science, we call it natural science now. I don't know, it's a new curriculum that is now being used, so I don't know what they call it, but I used to call it natural science.
Life sciences.
Oh, so they call it life science now. So yeah, they have like very specific things of how things should be. And yeah, I have a problem with the kind of systems. Like I understand why things should be standardized, but the minute we standardize the education and the minute we standardize the content, we're programming kids, right? We're programming this kind of person to be this kind of a person after 7 years. And I have a problem with that because we're losing out on very intelligent people who might take the wrong side, or who we lose out, like as a woman, as people, and the problems that we'll be solving, and the minds that solve it, and how they attack such problems. So yeah, I'm trying to like spread it out, and my focus is on underprivileged kids. And yeah, we have like a lot of models that we try to use that we get money sort of from the privileged people and the privileged kids. So these games are fun. You can still take it to a kid that is studying in Rosebank Primary School. And so we try to like service the schools and try to do free sessions for someone who's in the villages of Limpopo and cannot afford such services. So yeah, we have a very interesting model around it, and I'm trying to grow. So I've recently launched a project called, why is it so loud? A project called 67 Games for 67 under-resourced schools for Mandela Day next year. So we know that every Mandela Day we have people doing good to other people for 67 minutes because Nelson Mandela spent 67 minutes, 67 years of his life trying to free the people of South Africa. So in his honor, we launching that project to make 67 games, take it to 67 different schools in the villages and townships. And this is something I would definitely need a lot of help from a lot of people, and I think this is the right platform to launch such a project. So I've been speaking to a lot of people to come and pledge games as a person, or a gaming concept that can maybe address sexual issues or address mathematical related problems. So yeah, our focus is on primary school learning again and 67 games. And I'm so happy that we have almost 20 people who have pledged from our community that they're gonna submit the games. So we're running short of 47 games, and I'm hoping that more of us will come and we'll work together and launch this. So yeah, that's what I do.
Is it cool if I said I totally messed up my foot dancing last night? Hello, my name is Alicia, and I am visiting from Toronto in Canada. And I'm going to just talk about, I guess, how I entered the magic circle and then where that has led me into the work I'm doing now. And so I guess like almost 3 years ago, I had heard about a group called Danes Making Games. And I went out to a social, and it's like an event that they have monthly that is they'll have two or three speakers, and then so there'll be like a couple. Okay, there'll be like a couple speakers, and then just everybody like hangs out and eats Doritos or whatever. And so when I got there, I was talking to some people. I said, I'm a writer, I'm a student, I would love to make games, but I don't know, how is that even possible? Like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So Henry Faber runs a space called Bento Miso that is kind of like geek headquarters. It's a co-working space for game devs and like other tech-related industry people. And So he says, oh, well, you can make a game just writing, like you can use this program Twine. Some of you are probably at my workshop the other day, and we jammed out some Twines. If you weren't and you don't know what that is, very briefly, just a program essentially that will like build out a website, and you link passages, you can make interactive fiction, either like linear or non-linear. And you can get really creative with it, make like really amazing things. So they said, we're having a jam next weekend, why don't you come out? So I did. I taught myself Twine in that weekend with help of new friends that I made. And since joining DMG, I've gotten like really involved in the community, and so now I do a lot of like volunteering. I'm on the PR and communications committee, and I was on the outreach committee previously, and so what we do is we kind of partner with other community organizations to bring game making to other spaces as well, so that it's not just like keeping it in our space, but also like sharing the message to other people who might not know that game making is accessible and that it can be inclusive. And I think the really special thing about our community is our space, for sure. We are really privileged in the fact that we have space in Toronto. Bentonville is like headquarters for DMG, and we have really strict safe space policies. So there's just no tolerance of anyone being a dick. Like you just can't do that. It's and it's like enforced by everyone, and everyone is like really welcoming and accommodating, and we are just like very dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity. And that is what DMG is all about. Like, we're a nonprofit organization. We want to get more women making games, and also like other marginalized folks, like people with disabilities, or like trans people, people of color. Like, we want everyone to make games. And I think the really important thing is, like Ben was saying in his talk, new voices. And I know we've had a lot of discussions about like making games to make money, or like that we have to eat. And I've thought about that a lot, and for me, I think like I can't get paid to make games right now. Like, nobody's gonna hire me to like do a thing because I'm just starting to learn to code. And which I mean I would have never started doing if I hadn't joined DMG and started making Twines. Like, that gave me the confidence to even like open up Unity and be like, okay, maybe I can write some code. So I think that the idea and the goal is to, we want to be sustainable. We want to be able to like tell our stories and possibly make some money from that. But I think the goal is to hear new voices and hear new stories. And so I've actually, like, making games for me has been in a way a little bit of therapy. And I know it's like that for a lot of other DMG members, like working on like kind of heavy topics, like mental illness and like abuse and just like very serious things that we deal with. And these are not necessarily the kind of games that people want to like run out and buy, but I think they're like really important. And so I just want everyone to make games, because I think it's a really powerful medium for telling those stories, more so than like any other, because you can kind of like put yourself in the player position. So that's a little bit of what I do. That's what I came down here to talk about, and taught a Twine workshop in Cape Town too. It's really cool with Amber Key. I'm really excited about that. That's me.
Hi, I'm Richard. I've been running parties and game jams and other weird things in between for the last like 2 years in Cape Town, along with a bunch of other super amazing human beings, sort of under the general blanket of Super Friendship Arcade. I think from the get-go, like one of our sort of tenets of doing it is we wanted to like create these like very inclusive spaces and create these communities and cultures that we wanted to hang out in. I think Cape Town's especially weird because it's still very like not integrated at all. Long Street's like the strangest place. Like you walk down there and it's like mixed like classes and races hanging out, but it's like pockets. It's like white bar, black bar, white bar. It's like the strangest thing I don't understand. And it's like much radder here in Joburg, and I want Cape Town to be more rad. So we've been pushing hard to like create a sense of safe space and stuff, and the arcades and the way we promote them. But I mean, so far we're doing good, but we're not doing good enough. I think we've got like we've done pretty well on sort of the gender side. Like there's like a pretty even gender representation of parties, which we're super stoked about. But there's still like huge it's like just elite privileged like upper class people at our parties all the time, which is a bit boring. And I've also been running game jams around Cape Town. Basically, we've been trying to use the parties to encourage people to make games, show people that making games is a thing, and then take the games to like show at the parties, so like the cycle. And we've been trying so hard to like get more people into our game jams from like outside of the community, and it's sort of working, but not quite. It still ends up as Anya says, being the usual suspects. So we did try one thing, which was a super interdisciplinary jam, which worked pretty well in terms of getting people from at least different fields into making games. And it was basically just like, it wasn't a game jam, it was a come and work on whatever you're working on jam. And it was super fun and super rad to see what everyone was doing, and like having people from outside your field giving you input on your work was really cool. So yeah, and then I met Alicia in San Francisco at GDC, and I was like super inspired by the stuff that was going on at GDC. Things like Lost Levels, which is an unconference, which is basically like a self-organizing conference where there's no hierarchy to it and no saying like you get to talk and you don't. It's anyone can get up to talk, and I think that was like really amazing. And then I found out about BMG. I didn't even know things like that were happening. These groups specifically for marginalized groups. There's DMG and there's Pixels and there's Hand-Eye Society and a bunch of others, and they're popping up all around the world. So I mean, I pretty much have been like looking at what's going on in other countries and just stealing it and trying to do it here because it's so rad. So in that vein, we ran, I think 3 weeks ago or a month ago, I ran a workshop. I collaborated with Megan Hughes, who's also in Cape Town, Dorian over there, and Dawi, who's from QCM, to run a women's game making workshop. And we felt a bit like conflicted about whether we should be like running a workshop specifically for women. Like we didn't want to do like more othering and stuff in the workshop, but we feel that when we run jams and we advertise them mostly for Facebook and stuff, people see it, but then they think that's not for them. Like they don't pay attention to it; they just keep moving on. And we wanted to draw people's attention. Be like, this is for you. You don't need to have any experience. Anyone can come. And like, the less experience you have, the better probably, because you'll make something more interesting. And it worked super well, so we're very excited to keep doing that. And yeah, just in general, I think games are like the most amazing medium for getting people to interact. Like you can throw a party and have different, like huge diversity of people, but it doesn't help if they're being like cliquey. And games are a great way of like breaking down that clickiness. And also, there's something very special when you play jobs with someone or something, and you see their playful side. Like, I always like I make snap judgments about people all the time, and I've been like wrong so many times about the way people are when I see them in their playful state playing jobs and stuff, and like kind of how beautiful they are as human beings. So I think games are just super great. So yeah, I'm just I just want to like run more like weird experimental events, trying to like pursue these things. I think doing things like pop-ups along Long Street would be like a great like step in that direction. Just put a projector up on the wall, and then like it doesn't matter what bars you're going to, you're walking down the street, everyone's going to come and see what's going on. Cool.